the Common Council meeting of November 1st, 2022 to order. Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Here.
Lorik.
Here.
Alderman Dukniak is excused. Alderperson Marshall.
Here.
Gale.
Here.
And Alderperson Guzekowski is excused.
Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Max, can I get you to start us off?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, if you'd all take a look at the minutes of October 18th, 2022, please. And when you're satisfied, there's no discussion, omissions, corrections. Motion, please.
Marshall moves to approve the minutes of October 18th, 2022.
Kowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorik.
Abstains.
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye. Okay.
Melissa doesn't do us any good that way. We can come to it later after Chris shows up. Danny, you want to hold it till later in the agenda?
We'll hold the minutes. There's no vote. Move proclamation. On minutes.
Since Greg abstained, Dan.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So we'll do it later in the
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, we'll move on to item 4. It is actually a mayoral proclamation for Small Business Saturday, and that's going to occur November 26, 2022. Catherine, if you'd like to read that into record.
Certainly. Small Business Saturday, November 26, 2022. Whereas the government of Oak Creek, Wisconsin celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 32.5 million small businesses in the United States, representing 99.7% of firms with paid employees, and they are responsible for 62% of net new jobs created since 1995. And whereas small businesses employ 46.8% of the employees in the private sector in the United States, and whereas 79% of consumers understand the importance of supporting the small businesses in their community on Small Business Saturday, 70% report the day makes them want to encourage others to shop small, independently owned retailers, and 66% report that the day makes them want to shop small all year long. And whereas 58% of shoppers reported they shopped online with a small business, and 54% reported they dined or ordered takeout from a small restaurant, bar, or cafe on Small Business Saturday in 2021. And whereas the City of Oak Creek supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And whereas advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now therefore, I, Daniel J. Bakevich, Mayor of Oak Creek, Wisconsin, do hereby proclaim November 26, 2022 as Small Business Saturday, and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Dated this first day of November, 2022.
Thank you, Catherine. Is there anybody that'd like to make a comment about Small Business Saturday? No? I guess I'll just take this as a reminder. It's very important to patronize these businesses, not only here in Oak Creek, but elsewhere. Keep in mind, the landscape is dotted with big box stores and all the names you recognize from Target to Amazon. They all started out small. Everybody has a friend or a relative that started out in a small business with one truck or one employee and then grew it into a successful business and may have passed it on to another generation. And then, grows to the point where they can give back to the city and do some philanthropy and things like that. I've had the pleasure to work for people like that. So please, when you're doing your shopping, consider the brick and mortars, particularly the small businesses that are there first and foremost to sell their goods and support their families. So with that, I'm happy to make this a mayoral proclamation. We need no action on it, but very important subject to breach this time of year. So we will now move on to the council proclamation, and this is exciting. This is in recognition and appreciation of the Oak Creek City Library and their 50th anniversary. So Catherine, if you would please.
Certainly. Council Proclamation 2203 in recognition and appreciation of the Oak Creek Public Library on their 50th anniversary. Whereas in 1969, a group of local residents came together and formed the Friends of the Oak Creek Public Library to create a municipal library in Oak Creek. And whereas in 1972, the alderpersons of Oak Creek agreed to support a municipal library, thus founding the Oak Creek Public Library. And whereas through a remarkable weaving together of community resources, the Oak Creek Public Library was opened to the public in November of 1972. And whereas the City of Oak Creek, understanding the critical importance of well-funded and vibrant libraries, decided to construct a new, larger library in 2012. And whereas in October 2015, the Oak Creek Public Library moved to its new location in the heart of Drexel Town Square. And whereas the Oak Creek Public Library highlights the library as the cornerstone of the community, providing opportunities for all to engage in the joy of lifelong learning and to connect with the thoughts and ideas from the past to the present. And whereas the Oak Creek Public Library has a vision to open minds to a world of unlimited possibilities and a mission to connect communities, inspire thought, and enrich lives while serving as an educational pillar of the community. And whereas as our population grows and technology changes, the library continues to explore new ways to serve the residents of Oak Creek while still retaining a personal connection with our residents when they walk in our doors. And whereas for the past 50 years, the library has added services and activities for all ages, including children's and teens activities, computer training, internet access, government and genealogy research, consumer health information, job seeker, and small business resources, and other means of community support and enrichment. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and the common council of the City of Oak Creek congratulate the Oak Creek Public Library on their 50th anniversary and commend the library staff, past and present, for working diligently to make our library an important and vital community resource, dated this first day of November, 2022.
Thank you, Catherine. Before I go to the council, I'll invite any members of the library or library board if they'd like to say a few words on behalf of the library. Anyone? Ladies, just so for the minutes, can we get your names, please?
Jenny Davies, I'm the Assistant Library Director.
Sharon Armstrong, Library Board President.
And I don't have much to say other than I'm very happy that 50 years ago the Oak Creek decided to have a library. And I'm really proud of what the library's done since then. It's pretty amazing if you look at the beginnings and now all the progression. And I don't know if any of you are on Facebook or if you're on the library's Facebook page. If you're not, you should be, because we've been doing 50 years, counting down to the 50th anniversary of Oak Creek, and there's a lot of great pictures and news articles and things posted from the beginning of the library to now. And it's just really cool to see, like, you know, when VHS tapes were first being circulated or when records were being circulated, and now we're talking about, you know, now we're circulating digital equipment and stuff. So I just want to thank all of you who've been involved in the library over the years. It's really very important for us, so.
I have to echo what Jenny just said, but yeah, it was great to be a part of it. I worked there not quite 30 years. When I look back at those pictures, I just can't believe it. At any rate, we're happy to be here, and thank you for the information.
Congratulations on the 50th. Councilmen and women, any comments? Steve?
You know, a long time ago, we had a library. Everybody needed a library just because we didn't have the technology we have today. And then when the new library was proposed, you know, I heard people say, well, why are we having a library? It's going to be outdated. We don't use books anymore. It's all this and all that. But talking to Jill, the usage of our library has, like, you know, like really, exploded because of the library we have, and it isn't just the books, but it's the technology they have there, the rooms that people can use and stuff like that. So, and it's such a neat concept to have it in this, attached to City Hall, because you can kind of go back and forth, and we can use their rooms and they can use our rooms, and it's kind of made up pretty good. I remember my kids were in grade school. My wife was like, if you didn't find her at home, you found her at the library, because that's where the kids were finding their stuff for schoolwork. So, by the time they moved over here, they were in high school, so they had everything there. But I just want to thank you for the hard work and contributions you make to Oak Creek, especially during COVID. I think you guys came up with a novel idea for kids to still get books and stuff like that. So just want to say thank you.
Greg?
So I sit on the library board. When you look at 50 years, I've been on the board for a very small blip of that. But as everybody's been talking about, the library is a huge asset to the city. They've really evolved with the changing times. I mean, books are still a huge part of the library, but all the different programming, the classes they offer to young children, all up to adults, it truly is a valuable asset. They have a 3D printer that's available for use. And most recently, I've been able to transfer some old video for my mom using equipment that the library does loan out to people. So appreciate everything they do.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Ken?
Yeah, Danny, you were part of this discussion. It was not an uncontroversial decision to invest in a new library back when we broached that subject in 2010 or 11, whenever it was, I don't remember, but obviously your efforts and the success of the existing structure as it is has made it well worth the turmoil and the controversy and the discussion that went on, and we're happy to have you, and it's been a good success for the community.
Without a doubt. And, I get to roam around the city quite a bit, and people compliment us on what we've accomplished at Drexeltown Square. They bring up the square, and the second thing they always bring up is our library. When the library board and the group that went out to help design it, they really put some careful thought into it, the way it's laid out with the children's section and the quiet section. And it's actually been a model. I don't know how many cities we've have come through that are looking at a new city center, city hall library, and the top model is right here in Oak Creek. And it's just amazing how many people you'll meet from surrounding communities, whether Greendale and Greenfield, that choose to come down here. I know a lot of people from Milwaukee choose to come down here with their young children for the children's programming and the train and everything involved there. So just a great job. And that's just great leadership from Ross from the time I got in here to Jill, and the consistency on that library board. Without a doubt, there's been good leadership, and it shows with success. So again, congratulations on your 50th. Thank you. So we will need no vote on that. Oh, I'm sorry, we will.
Yeah.
Totally lost here. Motion on that proclamation, please.
Clerk moves to adopt Council Proclamation number 22-03 in recognition and appreciation of the Oak Creek Public Library on their 50th anniversary.
Marshall will second.
Roll call.
Alderperson Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
That will get us to item 6, and that is our first public hearing of the night. That's consider a request by Caitlin LaJoy of Bryan Builders Corporation for an amendment to the existing conditional use permit to remove a portion of the property at 7433 South 10th. Catherine, you want to read that in?
Certainly. Public hearing number 1 is to consider a request submitted by Caitlin LaJoy, Bryan Building Corporation, for an amendment to the existing conditional use permit to remove a portion of the property at 7433 South 10th Street, Lot 2 of CSM, to be recorded. Applicant is Caitlin LaJoy, Bryan Building Corporation. Property owner is Bast Holdings, LLC. Legal description there follows. Date of notice is September 28th, 2022.
Doug?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Doug Seymour. I'm the Director of Community Development for the City of Oak Creek. And the first of 5 hearings this evening is on a request to amend a conditional use permit for the property at 7433 South 10th Street. You can see that property highlighted in red on the map before you. Perhaps to provide a bit of context for not only this public hearing but the two that follow it, just wanted to share with you the proposal for this property, which would include about 130,000 square foot multi-tenant industrial building for smaller businesses on that side, because that really sets a stage for, I mean, the things that are taking place in terms of the rezonings, the CSMs, conditional use permits, and what have you. And this is just some renderings. I do that with the caveat that these public hearings are not about the site, they're not about the building, they're about the mechanics of the conditional uses, the rezonings, and the land division. But I just thought it was pretty important to provide a little bit of context to kind of piece all of those together. Let's go up here. This first one is a proposal to amend the conditional use permit the property at 7433 South 10th Street. And that property, which is owned by Right Way Bus, as is the entire property, was granted a conditional use permit essentially for the bus operations of that bus service storage yard. And that covered, as most conditional use permits do, the entire property that they own, which is shown again in red. Should this proposal for the industrial building move forward, we would not want that conditional use permit to extend beyond the borders of the Right Way property, the bus service storage yard property. And as such, the proposal would be to amend that conditional use permit to not cover that portion which is not under ownership by Right Way. So that essentially is what this first public hearing is about. The Planning Commission did consider this at the meeting of September 27th. They did recommend approval, subject to the attached conditions and restrictions, which essentially just say these don't apply to the rest of the property. So this being a public hearing, the first of several public hearings on this matter, would ask if anyone has any questions or comments regarding the proposal to amend the conditional use permit for the property at 7433 South 10th Street. Approach the microphone, give your name, address, and when called upon, please present your question or comment to the Common Council. This public hearing is now open.
Thank you, Doug. And as Doug said, we will make 3 calls, this being the first. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach the podium on name and address. We'll now make the second call. Third and final call. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach the podium, name and address. We will now close the public hearing on item 6 and move on to item 7, and it's consideration of a request by Caitlin LaJoy, Bryan Builders Corporation, to rezone a portion of the property at 7300 South 13th Street.
Public hearing number 2 is to consider a request submitted by Caitlin LaJoy Bryan Building Corporation to rezone a property at the property at 7300 South 13th Street from B3 Office and Professional Business to M1 Manufacturing. Applicant is Caitlin LaJoy Bryan Building Corporation. Property owner is Corporate Square LLC, Stone Fox Investment LLC, care of Enercon Properties. Legal description there follows. Date of notice is September 28th, 2022.
Thank you. So this second public hearing covers the property at 7300 South 13th Street. This is the property to the north of the Right Way Bus Company, the property that's developed as Corporate Square. And as part of the process to make the development of the property, the Right Way property, the remnant piece of the Right Way property, developable in the sense that to meet all our ordinances, the developer has sought out additional land to provide open space to be combined with that property. So the land that you see in red on the left-hand side of the display shows that property entirely, and I'll call your attention to the little call out on the right side, which makes no sense because I don't know who's looking at left and right, but forgive me for that. But it just shows the smaller portion of that property, which would be rezoned from the office and professional business, again, to that manufacturing to allow for its inclusion as part of that larger manufacturing property, which would be the parent property for this new industrial development. So with that in mind, anyone who has any questions or comments regarding the proposal to rezone a portion of the property at 7300 South 13th Street, please again approach the podium, give your name and address, proceed to address your questions and or comments to the Common Council. This public hearing.
Thank you, Doug. And once again, we'll make 3 calls. This being the first. Second call, anybody wishing to speak on item 7. Third and final call. Alders, are there any questions before I close it? Move on. We will now close the public hearing on item 7 and move to item 8, and it's consideration of a resolution approving a certified survey map submitted by Bryan Building Corporation for the properties at 7433 South 10th and 7300 South 13th.
So the proposed CSM that you see on your screen takes those properties, the remnant of the right-way property as well as the property at 7300, and combines those into one property, which would then be subject to our next public hearing to rezone that new property to M1 manufacturing.
Okay.
Again, third of 3 public hearings on this matter. Anyone with any questions, comments, please approach the microphone, give your name and address, and proceed to address the question of the Common Council. This public hearing is now open as well.
Thank you, Doug. This will be the first call. Second call. Third and final. Third and final call. Shall now close the public hearing. Move on to item 9. Item 9.
Sorry, I was just getting in the zone there. There's no public hearing on that one. That's just a resolution.
Oh, Steve?
I have one question. Doug may or may not be able to answer it. Is there anybody from Bryan Construction Corporation here? Okay. On your letter, on the back side, page number 2, in the paragraph, plan and hours of operation. I'll let you come up and give us your name.
My name is Caitlin LaJoy, 3885 North Brookfield Road, Brookfield, Wisconsin, 53045.
Okay. So in that paragraph, plan and hours of operation, there's an incomplete sentence at the end of it. It says tenants will not be, and that is for, by the way, that's for both 8, 9, and 10.
Okay.
So you got the same letter for each one, so I can address all of them with this one. So what is the ending to tenants will not be?
Can you read the first part of the paragraph?
Sure. Well, it says plan and hours of operation. The plan and hours of operation will be determined once tenants are identified. However, these will follow typical business hours from approximately 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, with the possibility of limited hours on Saturday and Sunday, period. Tenants will not be, fill in the blank.
I think that probably should have just been removed completely. The first few sentences addresses the hours that we're recommending for the prospects.
Okay. I'm good. Doug, that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
Good.
it then.
Very good catch.
And then,
Uh,
oh, sorry, one more.
Yes.
In kind of jumping ahead to ordinance number 10, I think there's a typo with the proposed zoning. It says M3, and I just want to clarify that it's M1.
It's correct on the ordinance, and that's correct on your staff report. The agenda does show M3, which there is no M3. It's M1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. 8. We will look for a motion on 8.
Okay. Kirkowski will make a motion to adopt resolution number 12360-110122, approving a certified survey map submitted by the Bryan Building Corporation for the properties at 7433 South 10th Street and 7300 South 13th Street.
Lork seconds.
Roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
Lorick?
Aye.
Marshall? Aye.
Okay, item 9, consideration of an ordinance amending the conditions and restrictions in the ordinance number 2762 to exclude the portion of the property at 7433 South 10th Street, Lot 2 of the CSM to be recorded. Doug, any comments on this, or is it self-explanatory? Did we cover this?
This goes back to the public hearing that was held for item
6, yeah. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, motion.
Kirkowski makes a motion to adopt ordinance number 3053, amending the conditions and restrictions in ordinance number 2762 to exclude a portion of the property at 7433 South 10th Street.
Bork seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Item number 10 is consideration of an ordinance rezoning the portion of the property at 7300 South 13th Street, part of Lot 2 of the CSM to be recorded from B3 Office Professional Business to M1 Manufacturing.
Oh, pardon me. Public hearing number 3 is to consider a request submitted by Gary Wendt, Bradford Real Estate Companies for a conditional use permit.
I'm sorry.
Item. It's just,
Okay, my apologies, there's
Oh.
several. Yep,
yeah.
we're good.
So,
This,
Right, number
this
10.
essentially takes that, and again, I apologize because it's a little bit confusing on the sequencing. But first, you remove the conditional use from a portion of the property. You then created a portion of the property and combined it with the larger property, make it a whole. And now you're placing zoning on that entire property. That's what this is doing.
Okay.
clear as mud, everybody?
Yep.
Sorry about that. Are there any questions concerning it? We're just clear, we're just rezoning. Motion on 10 then.
Kirkowski make a motion that the council adopt ordinance number 3054, an ordinance to rezone a portion of the property at 7300 South 13th Street, part of Lot 2 of a CSM to be recorded from B3 Office and Professional Business to M1 Manufacturing.
Bork seconds.
Roll call?
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Now, item 11. And that is consideration, it's conditional use, consideration of a request submitted by Gary Wendt, Bradford Real Estate Companies for a conditional use permit for an outdoor recreation facility, private playground on a portion of the property at 150 West Forest. Catherine?
Public hearing, I didn't think I missed it. Public hearing number 3 is to consider a
been a long
request
day.
submitted by Gary Wendt, Bradford Real Estate Companies for a conditional use permit for an outdoor recreation facility, private playground on a portion of the property at 150 West Forest Hill Avenue, Lot 1 of proposed CSM. Applicant is Gary Wendt, Bradford Real Estate Companies. Property owner is Demco WI1 LLC. There follows the legal description. Date of notice is October 5th, 2022.
Doug?
Thank you. This public hearing, which has nothing to do with the property on 13th Street, would establish a conditional use permit on the property at 150 West Forest Hill Avenue. And that would be to allow for an outdoor recreational facility or private playground in conjunction with a private daycare center, which is a permitted use on the property as it stands in Zone B3, just that the playground portion would require a conditional use permit. Building would be about a 10,000 square foot single-story building. Play area outside would be about 5,000 square feet. About 159 children at maximum capacity. It is part of a land division, or is part of a land division that's being undertaken for that property. So this takes up roughly the north half of the property. The southern half would be open for additional development, although that's not the subject of this public hearing. So the Plan Commission, in essence, did review this proposal, and they did recommend approval of the conditional use permit for the outdoor recreation facility. And just as a note, these site plans, like the previous one, are here for reference only. These would all come back to the Plan Commission for site and building plan review at a later date. But with that in mind, this being a public hearing, anyone with any questions or comments regarding the proposed conditional use for the property at 150 West Forest Hill Avenue, to please approach the microphone, give your name and address, and proceed to address your comments Any other questions of the Common Council? This public hearing is now open.
Thank you, Doug. As Doug said, we will make the first call. This is the first call. Anybody wishing to speak? Ann? Are you Ann? Yep. Name and address, please, for the record.
Sure. Ann McKillop. The last name is spelled McKillip. Address 220 West Forest Hill Avenue. That's where our business is located. I am the Human Resources Administrator for Ebenezer Child Care Centers. And prior to my promotion last year to this position, I was the center director for 14 years at Ebenezer Child Care Centers, Oak Creek location at 220 West Forest Hill Avenue. I'm here today to express our frustration over finding out just yesterday that Learning Experience is planning to build a new child care center at 150 West Forest Hill Avenue, which is basically right across the street from our well-established quality early learning facility. We opened our Oak Creek nationally accredited and Wisconsin Young Star 5-star rated facility in 2004. Our facility is licensed for 166 children, and we currently have 101 children enrolled at an 83 full-time FTE equivalent, so we are nowhere near capacity. Oak Creek does not need another child care center on Forest Hill Avenue, especially one with a capacity of up to 159 children. We are also concerned about the quality of care children who are enrolled in this new center will receive, since Learning Experience's New Berlin location has only a Young Star 2-star rating, and their Franklin location has a Young Star 3-star rating. In addition, neither of Learning Experience's locations are accredited by the National Accreditation Commission, like our facility is. In the field of early childhood, a national accreditation is an indicator of a center's commitment to providing quality care. Also, Learning Experience only requires their lead teachers to be a level 6 on the Wisconsin Registry for Early Care Providers, where we require our teachers to be at a level 11. Ebenezer Child Care Centers has been serving Greater Milwaukee since 1968, and we have been committed to providing quality care for Oak Creek's busy working parents for almost 20 years. And we have the capacity to add over 50 more children to our facility. Therefore, we are extremely disappointed that this is being permitted and that we're not made aware of this situation prior to our finding it out on our own just yesterday. It totally goes against supporting well-established businesses in the Oak Creek community. I know included in this meeting earlier, Saturday, November 26th was declared Small Business Saturday and supporting Oak Creek businesses. This is not supporting a well-established, high-quality small business that has been in your community for close to 20 years. In a field where finding quality staff is at a crisis level, this will only make finding and hiring quality child care professionals harder to do because of increased competition in the marketplace. In turn, allowing this new site to open, we will be jeopardizing the future of both facilities in Oak Creek. We would like to encourage you to rethink this decision and ask you to support us in filling the open spots we have within our center versus allowing another center to come into our neighborhood that will not have high-quality early care and education standards, which Ebenezer Child Care Centers has been providing to Oak Creek residents since 2004. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ann.
Mayor?
Yes.
I mean, Oak Creek is really blessed and fortunate to have a number of really quality childcare services available to its residents. And with that being said, I just want to just make you aware and let you know that this isn't about allowing another daycare center in the community. Daycare centers are permitted uses in the zoning. They're permitted uses on your zoning. They're permitted uses on this property. This is a public hearing about whether to have an outdoor recreation area attached to that. So, notwithstanding your concerns, and they're legitimate about, the effect of another entrant into that marketplace, it's really it's really determined by the marketplace. And the city, unfortunately is not in a position to pick, one over the other. It's just, it's enforcing its ordinances, which allow certain uses on certain properties.
Thank you, Doug. I think that was very well said, and I appreciate all the information you brought forward. But as Doug put it, the city does not, through zoning, limit parent competition, anything like that. That's why we have multiple banking institutions within the same areas as well. Things like that. So this really, as Doug put it, is really a conditional use within the zoning. So that's really the question at hand here. So, but I do appreciate it, Ann.
Thank you for your time. Would you like my statement?
Sure,
for
we
the-
can keep that. It will make it much easier on the minutes. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Second call, anybody wishing to speak? Third and final call on item 11. Okay, we will now move on to item 12. And that is consideration of the ordinance approving the conditional use permit for an outdoor recreation facility, private playground on the property at 150 West Forest Hill. Questions, comments from the alders? Greg?
So this is in the second district. I did speak with the speaker that came up a couple days ago. And I appreciate Doug kind of explaining the process and how it is an allowed use of the property. And for the mayor for saying that unfortunately we can't pick and choose competition in the area if it is an allowed use in the zoning. As far as it being a public hearing, do you know, she mentioned that she just heard about it a couple days ago. Do you know where the notice would have been sent or?
It would have been, I'm sorry, I mean, yeah, it would have been wherever the tax bill goes to. So it's possible that it may have gone to a corporate address. And we can certainly verify that. I just don't have that information in front of me.
Okay. But yeah, as far as all the concerns that she rose, I think you addressed them already. So, thank you.
Here.
Oh, Steve.
I was going to bring up that issue that Greg brought up about the lack of being notified for public hearing. You know, I also understand that we can't dictate the usage of property if it conforms to the zoning and stuff like that. But there's just something that strikes me kind of weird about this, in the fact that I wouldn't build a doggy daycare place across the street from Central Park because that's my competition. So to build a childcare facility right across the street from another one, I just don't like that. I just don't like it. Now, yeah, I know we as a city have been trying to have somebody build on that property since Woodman's, was built. And I just think, and I've said this on other issues before, that there could have been other places in the city, maybe on the south side on 27th, where they may not have one nearby, or up on the northwest side there at College and 27th or something. But just putting it right across the street from another place, I just don't like that, the outcome of that. And I think I think she made some very valid points that you're going to put them together, and then all of a sudden you're going to start drawing from one to another, or if the standards aren't high enough, parents will go to whatever's cheaper, but they don't get the quality of care because the standards are lower. So that's my viewpoint. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Greg?
Just to follow up, and I guess point of clarification, as you stated, this is a conditional use for a playground. So they own the property, it's zoned for this. They can and will build a childcare facility. We are discussing if it is appropriate to allow them to put an outdoor playground on the facility. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Before I call for a motion, I would just, for the record, like to clear it up. It's brought to my attention that the public notice was sent to Ebenezer Child Care Centers, Inc., Wisconsin Non-Com Corp. at 1496 South 29th Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53215. So, Ann, come on up. Sure.
So we have not been at that location for over a year.
Our records reflect that that's the operating address where the tax bill
No, your
Oh.
tax bill, well, we're nonprofit, but our communication would either go directly to the 220 location, or our new main office is at 1138 South 108th Street in West Dallas, 53214.
I would urge somebody from Ebenezer to come in and do a change of address for where they
Okay.
need those bills sent. It's the responsibility of the property
Okay,
owner. Okay? So
Right.
if you could pass that on, I'd appreciate it.
sure.
Seeing no more discussion, motion please on 12.
Clerk moves to adopt ordinance 3055, an ordinance to approve a conditional use permit for an outdoor recreational facility, private playground on the property at 150 West Forest Hill Avenue.
Gale, second.
Roll call?
Alderperson Marshall? Aye. Gale?
Aye.
Guzekowski?
Aye.
Kirkowski?
No.
Lorik?
Aye.
Okay. Item 13, concerning zoning code amendments, and it's considered a proposal to amend to Articles 3, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10 of Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code, the zoning and sign ordinance. Doug, you want to fill us in on this?
Sure, why don't we have Catherine read the public hearing notice first?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Public hearing number 4 is to consider proposed amendments to Articles 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10 of Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code zoning and sign ordinance. Date of notice is October 5th, 2022.
So here comes the explanation. As you're all very well aware, the city did adopt a new zoning code in March of this year. And as much as we try to be as perfect as possible in the introduction and the adoption of that code, there are certain to be some issues that make it the cracks or something based on the experience that we think probably could be clarified a bit more. And rather than bring each of those in separate actions before the Plan Commission and Common Council, we've made an attempt to kind of hold them off until we have a series or package of different amendments which kind of make sense. And this is what this is. So you'll see there's a number of them here, and I can just go very in a cursory fashion into each one. And certainly if there's other questions about that. But in many cases, it's a clarification and definition. It may just be something based on experience that's, well, that's not really what we meant. So I mean, they've all been well thought out, and I mean, these are issues that staff has brought up that wanted to bring to the council's attention, the Plan Commission's attention. And I hesitate to say cleanup issues because in that, kind of may minimize, the impact of some of those. But it really is to take the code which was adopted and based on the experience that we've had in the months that have ensued to really make that in what I think what everyone intended it to be. So if that's an approach that works for everyone, I will kind of go into a brief synopsis of each of these. For instance, the first one, non-residential district permitted and conditional uses. The title of the table is renamed to permitted and conditional use from permitted and conditional uses to permitted and conditional uses, non-residential districts. Easy, right? Next one, updating quote unquote primary building to principal building, just as for consistency purposes throughout the document. Please stop me if you have any questions. This next one is really not a cleanup issue, but something we were looking through that and in light of some of the things that have been taking place in neighboring communities over the past year. We just wanted to be crystal clear in our code that commercial slaughterhouses are not permitted anywhere in the city. One thing which I'll share with you is that kind of the intent of this new zoning code was to be a little bit more general and generic in terms of our permitted and conditional uses and let the regulations and the use regulations really govern that. Whereas before we would have had a separate category for machine parts manufacturing, printing, lampshade manufacturing, and any number of obscure manufacturing processes which may or not be reflective of what the current uses in the marketplace are. It was really put into buckets of light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing. And in that process, we just didn't want to leave any wiggle room at all for anyone to come in forward and say that, well, I've got a manufacturing process. It's the harvesting of animals. So that's what that is. The second one, this one is a clarifying and establishing locations and screening standards for trash receptacles in mobile home parks. Just something that came up in our everyday dealings with some of the mobile home parks and the residences, and we noticed that, hey, that wasn't in there, so putting that in. This section clarifies accessory building allowances and standards, and it clarifies it to say that only permitted after principal structure is built on the same lot. So in essence, there might have been a loophole, if you wanted to call that someone might have been able to put up an accessory structure before our principal structure was actually on the lot. This always was the intent. This is not a change of intent. Also says that non-residential accessory buildings of less than 250 square feet do not require plan commission approval. And it allows for administrative review of alternate building materials for those accessory buildings. Any questions on accessory buildings? This next one is about accessory structures, and there's a difference. Again, it says changes are that they shall only be permitted after a principal building has been constructed on the same lot, and allows for an additional 100 square feet on non-residential lots. Next one clarifies food truck licensing and inspection standards. It removes language that required a permit from the inspection department, and it reinforces that license and inspection by the environmental health specialist is still required. So nothing from the inspection department. On driveways, nothing really about driveways is changing. It's just that how it's applied. We want to make sure that it's applied to both single-family attached and detached structures. So you'll notice, remember, we'll have those two different types of single-family residential uses in the code now, and we just want to make sure that driveway standards apply to both detached and attached single-family. The next one about fences is probably one of the more meaningful ones. And under the old code, the city engineer had some discretion to issue building permits for fences within easements, provided a number of factors were taken into consideration. That discretion was removed in the new code, and in practice, in working with staff, and thanks Matt and your team, we came to the conclusion that, well, in certain circumstances, we can issue permits within easements. Not all easements, but easements that don't have any facilities in them. And also with the understanding and with the written consent that if there's ever any needed access to that easement for any reason, that any reconstruction of that fence is on the property owner. So it's really kind of bringing it back to the way we had it, but really even tightening it beyond that to allow these types of fences in certain easements, but making sure that the resident or the property owner understands that any cost would be on them if the city ever needed access to that easement. I don't know, Matt, if you wanted to add anything to that or not. It talks about exterior cladding materials, and it was just updated to say that it requires a 3/4 plan commission approval for the use of concrete as an exterior cladding material on interior side and rear building elevations. So still not on the front, but under certain circumstances on the side and in the rear. Allows temporary ground-mounted signs as permitted uses in Drexel Town Square and B2 zoning districts. They were not in there before. It clarifies the maximum allowed size of a wall-mounted banner sign and increases that from 30 to 60 feet. And it allows it again in B4 and B6 and I1 districts, which it hadn't been previously. It reinstates the traditional neighborhood development standards that were in the old code, which were just omitted from the new code. There's a whole section that was in the code, which is being transported again in its entirety into the new code that was more of an oversight. and updated and clarified various definitions, and all those definitions are in your packet. I can go into detail, as much detail as I can on any individual one of those. But those are the types of amendments, and again, nothing that's, I would say, substantive beyond maybe the fences and easements, but the things that when implementing a new zoning code, you run into things that, well, we should have done this, or this is what the intent was. And again, rather than bring them to you in 12 or 15 different public hearings, staff felt it prudent to package them into one public hearing. So that being said, anyone who has any questions or comments regarding the proposed zoning code amendments, to please approach the podium, give your name, address, and proceed to address your questions or comments to the Common Council. This public hearing is now open.
We will make 3 calls, this being the first. Second call, anybody wishing to speak. Third and final call. We will now close the public hearing, move on to item 14, which is consideration of the ordinance amending those articles 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10 of Chapter 17 of the Zoning Code of the Municipal Code. Councilman and ladies. Steve.
I'm sorry, it's the kind of night I'm having, I guess.
Everybody's there.
The, Doug, you can probably, and the mayor, you'll be able to help me out here. The proposed ordinance simply says, adopt ordinance 3056, an ordinance to amend articles 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10 of Chapter 17, zoning code of the municipal code. But as I went through the Plan Commission minutes at the end, the mayor made a motion and it was subsequently approved, but it says, with the language pertaining to animal processing facilities under Section 17 and vinyl siding on residential buildings in Section 17, various subparts, be and excluded. So there's a difference between what you voted on at the Plan Commission and what the proposed ordinance is.
So, if this will help you, Alderman, when it came to the proposed, they called it processing of the animal. Here at Slaughterhouse, they talked about if we had a facility, say, that would make sausage, which was a far different cry than slaughtering of animals. It was processing of the meat. So we needed some clarification on that. And as far as the vinyl siding went, I believe we are going with the three-quarter majority.
I must apologize. I don't have the details on what the Plan Commission's motion specific to vinyl siding was.
They were talking about not allow, well, yeah, the slaughterhouses, I'm just pointing it because it was written down. But I remember in a recent meeting, we had a debate over a new development where they wanted to have vinyl siding, and we required having brick on the first level. And I was opposed to requiring brick because we talked about it that night that if we approved it, where the developer wanted to have vinyl siding, that it would be in conflict with the ordinance, but we were making an exception for this group, and we're gonna have to come back and do this and do that for any other development. So the discussion you guys had was pertaining to not allowing vinyl siding on the first floor, first level of the houses, and you requiring brick. And for the record, I don't agree with that. I think if they want to put vinyl siding on the whole house, then they should be allowed to.
Yeah, and I think that, and maybe to put that in perspective, that was talking about a planned unit development, which has some different standards.
Right.
Then I think the discussion as it relates to the zoning code was for accessory structures and people who wanted to just do an accessory structure entirely in vinyl. And for, you know, I may be mistaken, but I think that was what the discussion centered around. Any on the Plan Commission recall that?
Well, I'd have to go back. I couldn't be 100% positive, but in the end, I thought we were almost going to take it on a case-by-case basis, depending on where the project sat and what it was, quite frankly. Because the variations in the vinyl can change product to product. But what we perceive, at least I perceive as vinyl, as a product that I look at every day at my neighbor's house that's 30 years old. things have greatly changed in 30 years with building material. So I thought it was going to be a three-quarter majority on that as well. But I could be mistaken. I mean, if we have to come back on that item for clarification, I'm not exactly sure which article that came out
And
of.
it sounds like it, I mean, if that specific language is not in the ordinance, so certainly if in this next round of edits, if we find that that's a need, we can include that.
Keep in mind, these are fluid documents. You know, obviously, we redid this. We put a lot of time and effort into it, and as we're moving along, we're finding we couldn't cover everything.
Right,
So-
and I was just pointing out the discrepancy between what you guys voted on and what our motion is tonight. It had excluded that language.
Yeah, and those were, and you're correct, those were two questions we had to find the language for. And I know with the slaughterhouse, it directly pertained to a meat manufacturer, beef sticks, things of that nature, which, I don't know if that falls under delicatessen butcher shop difference, far different cry.
Well,
So-
if you got to research it and come back.
It actually may fall under section 9. Alderman, it says that, it talks about exterior building materials for accessory buildings. And it says, they have to be, there's a number of different, systems there. It says proposals to use alternative exterior building materials may be submitted as an administrative adjustment request only for accessory buildings that do not exceed 250 square feet. So it's not changing the vinyl requirements or prohibitions anywhere else. It says that if you want to propose vinyl or any other type of material for accessory buildings of less than 250 square feet, you need administrative approval.
I noticed you had quite a bit of discussion on the vinyl siding issues. Okay.
Any other discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Doug, I appreciate your group taking the time to actually update these proactively, rather than doing it every 20 years or whenever zoning codes are updated. I did have a question, and I didn't, it just came to me as you read through what, on the standards with fences and easements. Globally, that sounds like actually it's granting a variance kind of on the fly, which is a kind of a process that isn't usually successful. So how are you in codifying or making that known? Are you recording that on a deed, or how are you? Because one landowner may put a fence on an easement, but the next landowner may not be so agreeable to having it torn out. So how are we preparing to deal with?
Well, I mean, the
that?
property owner, as much as they own the property and the improvements upon the property, they're signing essentially a statement that says, I acknowledge that if the city needs access to this easement for any purpose, and that the structure upon which the easement is built, requires damage to the structure, that I, as property owner, am responsible for that. If you don't agree with that, you don't build your fence in the easement.
Well, but that's fine for the current owner. What about the next owner? How are we keeping track of that stuff? Man, sorry.
So in the past, we've used the condition of approval, and it's basically items of approval, conditions within that the homeowner actually signs, and then we put on file. So it would actually be tied to that property and that fence.
It goes to the tax lot or something?
It would go right with the property within our programming
So
through
a
the permitting.
subsequent purchaser would see that somehow? Title search or?
Yeah.
They'll come in, they'll find it's an easement, and they'll be presented with that same statement.
Okay.
Same
All right, as
set
long
of
as you guys got a
circumstances.
system.
I think we do. Yep.
Right.
Is that it, Ken? Anyone else? Seeing no further discussion, motion please.
We'll move to approve ordinance 3056, amending articles 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10 of chapter 17, zoning code of the municipal code.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye.
That'll get us to new business, and under engineering, we have consideration of a motion to authorize the engineering department to enter into a contract negotiations with Collins Engineers for the design services of the South Sixth Street Bridge over the branch of Oak Creek. Matt?
Evening, Mayor and Council. Matt Sullivan, City Engineer. Before you, you have a consider a motion to authorize us to go into negotiation contracts with Collins Engineering for the bridge design. As you recall, I believe it was in July, we signed a state municipal agreement that provides us funding for the bridge design and reconstruction. We did put out a RFP, or request for proposals. We did have 5 engineering firms contact our assistant city engineer with interest. Unfortunately, only one provided their proposal to us at the time. We did contact Wisconsin Department of Transportation in regards to questions and only having one permit or proposal. They were very comfortable with moving forward with Collins Engineering and going into negotiations. This is just this formality step in that process, getting approval from the council here to go into negotiations. So that's what we're looking for. If you have any questions, let me know.
Questions for Matt?
Strikes me, well, it probably struck you as odd too. We have 5 people. Reliable, legitimate firms pull bid paperwork and not.
I think like construction, we're in that weird time where a lot of firms are really busy. They're struggling with employment. Probably can't meet the deadlines that were set. There's only certain ones that could, maybe.
So you're talking just bid prep.
Oh, yeah, just being able to prepare plans, specifications within the timing that we had within our agreement for that SMA.
Is this for construction next year?
This is for
24?
design and be construction in 2024. We'll be designing through this year. There are some things tied to it, like railroad coordination. So there is some constraints there, but we feel comfortable that that can still be met because it's only a spur, it's not a major rail.
Any other questions for Matt? Seeing none, motion please.
Kirkowski make a motion to authorize the engineering department to enter into contract negotiations with Collins Engineers for the design services of the South Sixth Street Bridge over branch of the Oak Creek.
Lork seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
And item 16 is the license committee. I'd like to turn that over to Alderman Kirkowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to read the items on their common council report tonight. Does anybody have any cares, questions, or concerns? All right, hearing none, the Kirkowski can make a motion to grant the various license requests as listed on the November 1st, 2022 License Committee report.
Lork seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
And item 17 is our vendor summary report for October 26, 2022 in the amount of $626,368.03. So if you would, please take a look, and if there's any questions, please feel free to take the floor and ask the question. Satisfied? There's no questions or discussion? Motion, please.
Marshall will move to approve the October 26, 2022 vendor summary report in the total of $626,368.03.
Guzekowski, I'll second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorick.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Thank you. And before we adjourn, we have to go back on item 3, the minutes. We had one abstention, and Alderman Guzekowski wasn't present at the time. So if we could go back on the minutes, item 3, please.
You have to have discussion.
If there's any discussion, questions,
Want to discuss it?
I'm just asking for proof.
if not,
Marshall will move to approve the minutes of October 18th, 2022.
Guzekowski will second.
and roll call.
Alderperson Marshall,
Aye.
Gale,
Aye.
Guzekowski,
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Abstains.
Okay. Before we call for adjournment, just want to remind everybody, next week is a voting day on Tuesday the 8th, correct?
Correct.
Early voting will take place until Friday here at Oak Creek City Hall. I ask that you be respectful to our clerks and our poll workers, as our poll workers are volunteers. They're here to serve the public. They volunteer. Our clerks do a great job. Please come in, exercise your right to vote, but please be respectful of the people and the property when you come to vote. Appreciate that. And with that, we'll ask for adjournment.
Lorik moves to adjourn.
Marshall will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale,
Aye.
Guzekowski,
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Thank you all.